Okay, so today's opener is going to be very similar to the quiz that you're going to take today. It's solving equations with multiple variables. So let's take a look at the first equation. You have negative 1 equals 4f minus 3 times 2f minus 3. Anytime that you're solving equations, you need to remember to draw your line of equality and then circle your variables. So after you circle your variables, you then need to simplify the equation. In order to simplify the equation, the first thing you want to ask yourself is if you can distribute. In this particular equation, you can distribute the negative 3 times the numbers in the parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down my negative 1 equals 4f. And then I'm going to go ahead and distribute my negative 3 times 2f to get negative 6f. And then I'll distribute negative 3 times negative 3, which will equal a positive 9. Once I distribute, the next step is to combine like terms. My like terms in this particular equation will be 4f minus 6f. So 4f minus 6f will be negative 2f. I'm going to go ahead and bring down the plus 9, and then on my left side of the line of equality, I'll bring down my negative 1. From here, I have a two-step equation. I need to determine which number I need to get rid of first in order to get the variable by itself, the negative 2 or the 9. To determine which one to get rid of first, I'm going to use order of operations backwards, which would be SAD/MEP. So according to SAD/MEP, I would get rid of the plus 9. I do that by using the inverse operation of minus 9. So on my left side, I'm going to have negative 1 minus 9, which will equal negative 10. On my right side, I can then bring down my negative 2f. To get the f by itself, I then would divide by negative 2. My 2's would cancel on my right, bring down my f. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 will be a 5. Now, the second part of the opener is using substitution to check your answer. So now, every time I see the variable f, I'm going to substitute the number 5. So I'll have negative 1 equals 4 times 5 minus 3 parentheses 2 times 5 minus 3 end parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and draw my line of equality. I like to do that just to help my work stay a little more organized. I'm going to go ahead and bring down my negative 1 on my left side, and then I'm going to go ahead and start solving the expression on my right side. When I go to solve this expression, I'm going to use order of operations to determine where I start. So order of operations is going to be PEMDAS, which means the P I would start within parentheses. Within the set of parentheses, I'm first going to multiply 2 times 5 to get 10. And then I'm going to take 10 minus 3, which will equal 7. So I'm going to go ahead and bring down the rest of my equation. That 7 then is going to have to go in parentheses. After I do parentheses, I look to see if I have exponents, which I do not. The next step then would be to multiply. So I would multiply 4 times 5 to get 20. And then I'd multiply negative 3 times 7 to get negative 21. From there, I would continue to simplify. 20 minus 21 would equal negative 1. If you compare the numbers on each side of the line of equality, they are the same. So f does equal 5, so I'll put a check mark next to my answer. Now let's take a look at the second equation. The second equation is 2 times n minus 7 minus 5 times 2n minus 1. Again, we're going to first solve, then use the additional space to check our answer using substitution. So when I go to solve my equation, the first thing I'm going to do is circle the variables and then draw my line of equality. When I go to simplify my equation, I first need to worry about where I can distribute. So in this particular equation, you can distribute in 2 different locations. So I'm going to distribute the first part which is going to be 2 times n, which will be 2n. Then 2 times negative 7, which would be negative 14. I can then distribute the second part of my equation. So I'll take negative 5 times 2n to get negative 10n, and then negative 5 times negative 1 to get positive 5. The second step of simplifying my equation would be to combine like terms. I always start with the variables in order to combine like terms. So I have 2n and minus 10n. 2n minus 10n is going to equal negative 8n. Then my second set of like terms will be negative 14 plus 5, which will equal negative 9. From here, I now just have a two-step equation that I need to solve, so I have to determine what number to get rid of first, the negative 8 or the negative 9. Now remember, the negative 8 is being multiplied by the n. So according to order of operations backwards, SADMAP, I'd get rid of this minus 9 first. So I'd add 9 to both sides. 9s would cancel on the left. I bring down my negative 8n. Negative 1 plus 9 would be a positive 8. From here, to get the variable by itself, I would then divide each side by negative 8. My negative 8s would cancel, and I'd bring down my n equals 8 divided by negative 8 would be a negative 1. And then box your answer. Now that we've solved the equation, we're going to check to make sure our answer is the right answer. So I come up, I rewrite my equation, except for this time, every time I see the variable, I substitute the negative 1 for it. So I'm going to have 2 parentheses negative 1 minus 7 parentheses minus 5 parentheses 2 times negative 1 minus 1 into parentheses equals negative 1. Again, I'm going to go ahead and draw my line of equality just to kind of help keep my work organized. Now, when I'm solving an expression and not for a variable, I go ahead and just follow order of operations the correct way. So I'm going to work within parentheses. When I work an equation, I always work it left to right like I read. So I'm going to work within the first set of parentheses first, which will be negative 1 minus 7. There's two ways that you could do this. You could distribute using the 2 times the negative 1 and then 2 times negative 7, or you could work in the parentheses and take negative 1 minus 7 and then bring that down. I'm going to work it out by distributing. So 2 times negative 1, actually, yeah, we'll go ahead and do that way. 2 times negative 1 will be negative 2. Then 2 times negative 7 will be negative 14. Then I have a second set of parentheses here. So then I have my second set of parentheses here. I cannot distribute the negative 5 to this set of parentheses because there are 3 groups of numbers in here. So distributing would not work here. So I'm going to have to work within the parentheses. So 2 times negative 1 will be negative 3. Then I would take negative 3 minus 1, which would equal negative 4. So I bring down my minus 5, and then in parentheses, I put in my negative 4. After I complete my parentheses, I look to see if I have any exponents, which I do not. And then I look to see if I have any multiplication, which I do. Here I have negative 5 times negative 4, which will equal positive 20. So I rewrite my equation to be negative 2 minus 14 plus 20 equals negative 1. And then I go ahead and continue solving. So I'm going to take negative 2 minus 14, which will get me to negative 16 plus 20, which equals negative 1. Okay, did anybody see the mistake that I made? Nope, I can't do that.